This is Petrina reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Council wins planning appeal on holiday home use. The Isle of Wight's council's enforcement action against the owners of a holiday home that was being used as a permanent home has been upheld by a planning inspector. The holiday unit was granted planning permission in 2016, having previously been used as a stable block. The owners began living permanently in the holiday home in 2018 in breach of planning conditions that required the use to be limited to holiday occupancy. The council has served an enforcement notice that required them to stop living there. The owners chose to appeal their notice, arguing the holiday accommodation was not viable and that it should be used as a dwelling. However, the planning inspector agreed with the council's concerns about the unjustified loss of the holiday unit, which is located within the area of outstanding natural beauty, AONB, close to Knighton. The inspector found the location was not suitable for a permanent home due to lack of access to services and facilities and the loss of a high-quality holiday home. As a result, the owners will be required to leave by November 2023. Councillor Paul Fuller, Cabinet Member for Planning, said, "Planning conditions and their compliance within our island is so important. To protect the island's demand for high-quality holiday accommodation and the need for housing to be located in sustainable locations is paramount for our island's economy."
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Isle of Wight Spring Walking Festival success. With more volunteer walk leaders, an increase of 100 miles to routes and more participants, the award-winning Isle of Wight Spring Walking Festival is being hailed a success by organisers. The Isle of Wight Walking Festival is a biannual event, allowing volunteer walk leaders to proudly show off the history, fauna and flora of this UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, one of only 7 in the UK. In May, the Walking Festival was presented with the Made on the Isle of Wight award by the local Chamber of Commerce, rewarding homegrown success for a business with a product that has a broad reach and enhances the reputation of the Isle of Wight. Amy Summers, Sustainable Travel, Trade and Exhibitions Manager for the Visit Isle of Wight, said, "We're delighted with the success of the Spring 2023 Isle of Wight Walking Festival, with 86 walks delivered in total. We welcomed 1,100 walkers over the 9-day festival, which saw 44% of walkers from the mainland and overseas. This event wouldn't be possible without the army of volunteers who support the event and become walk leaders. My thanks go to every single one of them for making the Spring Walking Festival a great success." The popularity of the Isle of Wight Walking Festival continues to grow as organisers welcomed new leaders keen to share their passions. Rachel Richards recently qualified as a fitness professional and offered to lead a series of women-only walks. Rachel says she was glad of the opportunity to lead walks during the 9-day Spring Walking Festival. "I know how research shows that providing opportunities and dedicated space for women to be active is proven to increase women's participation rates in activity. This reflects my own experiences. I feel more confident and comfortable when in ladies-only groups. There are so many social and physical barriers to women becoming active, and yet movement and activity is so important to the health and well-being of women, particularly as they grow older. The Isle of Wight Walking Festival also promotes the independent event Mountbatten Walk, the Wight, which celebrated a bumper year for walkers, with nearly 8,000 participants helping to raise over £340,000 for the local hospice and its services. Attention now moves to the Isle of Wight Autumn Walking Festival, which takes place between the 7th and the 15th of October, shining a light on the beauty of the island when the leaves on the trees have turned varying shades of red, and it becomes a chance to see how the island moves with the seasons. Volunteer walk leaders are being sought for routes for the Autumn Walking Festival in October and next year's Spring Walking Festival. If you would like to show off your favourite part of the Isle of Wight, or have an interest that you would like to share with like-minded people, then email organisers at the Walking Festival, walking@visitwight.org. The Isle of Wight Spring Walking Festival will celebrate 25 years next year, returning Saturday, May the 11th to the Sunday, May the 19th, 2024.
Full steam ahead for Smallbrook Connections project after £40,000 funding secured, from the Island Echo, read by Jasmine. Thanks to a £40,000 grant from South Western Railway Customer and Communities Improvement Fund, the Isle of Wight Steam Railway is now planning a series of improvements at Smallbrook Junction. Smallbrook Junction was originally an isolated signal box controlling the junction of the lines to Ventnor and Cowes. However, Smallbrook Junction Station, in its current form, was built in 1991 by Network South East to serve as an interchange between the Isle of Wight Steam Railway, IWSR, and the Electric Island Line. It is unusual in having no road or path access. The only way to get there is by train. The station's facilities were very basic until the current station building was opened in 2012, housing the booking office, waiting room and loo, and now it is set to get a further upgrade with the Smallbrook Connections project. The project involves creating a green energy station with a solar panel attached to the roof of the existing station building, which will provide the majority of the station's needs connected to the battery to ensure a continuous supply. The existing generator will be converted to run on biodiesel to provide extra resilience, and LED lighting along both platforms will ensure safe operation after dark. The existing Network South East era waiting shelter will be replaced, and the aim is to build a structure more in keeping with the British Railways era portrayed on the rest of the station. Customer information screens will be provided real-time information on Island Line and IWSR trains, assisting passengers making a connection between the two. A replica of the original signal box will also be built on the concrete base upon which the original wooden structure stood before the line was electrified. When complete, it will tell the story of this once busy junction.
Hello everyone, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined Former Owners of Derelict Sandown Hotel Set for Crown Court Date. The former owners of Sandown's derelict Ocean Hotel will appear before the Isle of Wight Crown Court next week. It's the latest step in the Isle of Wight Council's case against Phoenix Commercial Property Development, that's PCPD. In February 2022, PCPD appealed a tidy-up order for the ISO Hotel, and the matter has been going through the courts ever since. Announcing the latest news, Sandown Town Councillor Ian Ward said he was very pleased to see the case was progressing, calling it another step forward. He said he hoped it would reassure concerned Sandown residents. PCPD sold the freehold in 2022, and its current ownership is unclear. No work can be done to restore or secure the hotel until the matter is concluded.
This is Patrina reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Island children and young people enjoy free holiday activities. Thousands of children and young people across the island have enjoyed a range of activities as part of the Isle of Wight Council's Holiday Activities and Food Programme, HAF. Published today, the HAF annual report reflects on a busy 12 months. Last year, the programme saw 1,375 youngsters eligible for benefit-related free school meals, attend free activities over the Easter period, 1,414 during the summer, and 897 over the Christmas school holidays. In total, more than 30 schemes were run in partnership with 13 local clubs and organisations, with almost 9,000 free healthy meals provided. Funded by the Department for Education and delivered by the Council, the HAF provides practical support to vulnerable school-aged children and their families during the school holidays in a fun and positive way. Local organisations supported activities such as skateboarding, climbing and drumming. In addition, some visitor attractions, including Robin Hill, Black Gang Chine, as well as farms and sports centres, allowed discounted entry for HAF providers to bring children for a day out. Sovereign Housing supported one scheme by hiring bags to provide a unique opportunity for the children attending to learn to cycle. Support organisations also attended some of the sessions, including the Footprint Trust, which was able to help families with energy bill advice and guidance. One advantage of being in a rural location is having easy access to the great outdoors. Indeed, the nursery has a wonderful field on which they keep chickens and tend allotments and greenhouses, as well as a small area of woodland which is just perfect for forest school activities and summer picnics. Kim Tyrrell from the nursery explained, "The children embrace collecting eggs, growing their own food and cooking it. That changes the game for them. They absolutely love putting together and being in charge of their choices. We make sure we share that information with parents. We'll either make up a recipe book or an activity book from the week so they know what they've been doing and how to do it." Isle of Wight Citizens Advice was also awarded funding. This allowed an advisor to attend each HAF scheme and speak to parents and guardians about the cost of living crisis and how they can get support. Councillor Debbie Andre, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, added, "The HAF annual report showcases the breadth of support that has been offered to our island families. I'm proud of all our providers. Thank you for all the work you've done and continue to deliver to the holiday activities and food programmes here on the Isle of Wight." The HAF Annual Report 2022-23 can be read in full on the Isle of Wight Family Information Hub website or visit Connect for Communities.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Shanklin Hotel named in TripAdvisor Best of the Best list. TripAdvisor has released their annual Traveller's Choice of the best hotels, and an independently owned hotel in Shanklin has made the cut. The magnificent Haven Hall Hotel, run by a small team led by owners David and Ariel Barrett, is celebrating second place in the best of the best small UK hotels category from the online travel information and booking website giant TripAdvisor. The Shanklin Hotel benefited from a multi-million-pound renovation in 2017 and now regularly features in magazine articles as must-visit destination. With 14 ensuite rooms, the luxury boutique hotel commands unrivaled views across the award-winning Sandown Bay and boasts a swimming pool, grass tennis court and croquet lawn. It also has a helipad in the 2-acre ground, which have won awards for the best hotel garden on the Isle of Wight. Owners David and Ariel said, "The award is really a reflection of the quality of the excellent staff who work with us as part of the family team running our hotel." Will Miles, MD at Visit Isle of Wight, added, "We are very proud that Haven Hall has won this prestigious award based on customer reviews on TripAdvisor. The Isle of Wight consistently shows up as a favourite destination for many visitors, with so much on offer from rolling countryside, award-winning beaches and attractions. Add in businesses such as David and Ariel's Haven Hall, providing such a good quality of service, it is easy to see why. The Traveller's Choice Best of the Best is awarded to hotels with a high volume of above and beyond reviews and opinions from their community over a 12-month period. Each winner has passed TripAdvisor's rigorous trust and safety standards, and fewer than 1% of TripAdvisor's 8 million listings are awarded Best of the Best, signifying the highest level of excellence in hospitality. Top of the list is the Molliston Hotel in Wales.
Cow Sports celebrate Isle of Wight Gold Cup success at awards evening. From the Island Echo, read by Jasmine. Cow Sports celebrated winning the Isle of Wight Senior Gold Cup and retaining their Wessex Premier status at their awards evening on Saturday 20th of May. The Yachtsmen's first team ended their season in 16th place in the Wessex Premier. The reserves finished in a credible 3rd place in Isle of Wight Division 1. Goalkeeper Ed Hatt won awards for Supporters Player of the Year, Players Player of the Year and Managers Player of the Year. Harrison Dempsey was Supporters Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year. John Mackey won the Gold Boot for the most goals. Cows Sports have written, "A fabulous presentation evening, a chance for the club to come together and acknowledge all the hard work over the last season. We are the senior club on the island and we are looking forward to our pre-season friendlies and the new 23-24 season to start. We would, as a club, like to thank everyone who helps keep our club going on and off the pitch, and a massive thank you to our supporters. We are gaining more with each game. A new chapter has begun, and we are excited for our supporters to come on that journey with us." The evening awards winners were Supporters Player of the Year, Ed Hatt and Harrison Dunphy. First Team Players Player of the Year, Ed Hatt. Burn Jeffrey Award for the first team leading goal scorer, John Mackey, 17 goals. Reserve team leading goal scorer, George Holmes. Bert Walters Award for Young Player of the Year, Harrison Dempsey. Frank Gibson's Award for the Commitment, John Firmage. Most Improved Player of the Year, Caleb Neal. Managers Player of the Year, Ed Hatt and Finn Phillips. Reserve Player of the Year, Max Coswell and Dan Pearson. Club Person of the Year, Pete Jeffries.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined E-Bikes Making a Difference in Tackling Antisocial Behaviour on the Isle of Wight. The Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones has paid homage to power-assisted bicycles, which she says are helping drive down antisocial behaviour on the Isle of Wight. The Commissioner provided the funding for 4 electric bikes for the South Wight Neighbourhood Policing Team, that's the MTT, to target antisocial behaviour in Sandown, Shanklin Lake and Ventnor. The bikes have been in operation since March, and officers have already reported their positive impact, with longer patrols, more than 600 kilometres covered, and a greater ability to target locations and individuals. Since their introduction, The e-bikes have contributed to 2 arrests, 3 stop searches, increased intelligence gathering, and a dramatic rise in antisocial behaviour hotspot patrols. In a visit to meet the South Wight NPT today, the Commissioner praised the dedication of the officers. I'm really pleased to see that these e-bikes are having such a positive effect, because as Commissioner, my pledge to keep families, communities and businesses safe means increasing the visibility of the police. These e-bikes are helping officers get out and about for longer and enabling them to cover more areas effectively so the public can feel safer. My Antisocial Behaviour Task Force Fund enables local organisations to work together to tackle such criminality, and my commitment to drive down antisocial behaviour won't stop. The bikes are part of Operation Spider, which tackles antisocial behaviour and associated crime, such as drug-related activity and serious violence. The operation involves a number of agencies, including health and education partners, to tackle the symptoms of antisocial behaviour and identify the root causes, enabling additional support to be provided to young people involved in particular, and to help divert them away from this type of activity.
This is Petrina reading from Island Echo. Seeley calls for new landscape protections in public access to nature debate. The Isle of Wight MP, Bob Seeley, highlighted the importance of the island's natural heritage and called for island-wide environmental protection during a recent parliamentary debate on public access to nature. He pointed out during the debate, which was held last Thursday, 18th of May, that the government has committed to protecting 30% of Britain's land by 2030 and urged the minister to consider an island park designated to protect the island. Bob explained, "There is a very strong case for introducing an island designation in our landscape protection, and I believe it should be introduced first in the Isle of Wight because of the uniqueness of our environment, the uniqueness of our habitats, the uniqueness of our wildlife, and the uniqueness of our geology." In UK designations, more than half of our land is an AONB, which I believe is wrongly parcelled into different areas. If we are to treat one bit of countryside as a unified entity, surely it would be an island, and therefore it surely be the Isle of Wight. An island park designation would see the island as a single ecological and environmental entity. Access to nature would be provided wherever necessary, respecting the law, but it would primarily function for the benefit of the Nature Recovery Plan. In his speech, Bob discussed the importance and diversity of the island's flora, fauna and habitats. Our landscape and seascape include broadleaf mixed and new woodland, maritime cliff and slope, lowland calcareous grassland, coastal and floodplain grazing marsh, lowland meadows, reed beds, lowland dry acidic grassland, fens, lowland heathland, the chalk downs that provide the spine of the island from Bembridge on one side to the Needles all the way over to the west, saline lagoons, mudflats, coastal sand dunes and coastal vegetated shingle. We are also home to many different species, some of which are unique to the Isle of Wight. Importantly, we have species on the island, some of them flourishing, that are near extinct in other parts of the United Kingdom. Those include red squirrels, dormice and water voles, because we do not have grey squirrels or lots of escaped mink. Our specialised flora includes early gentian, which is found in Wiltshire, Dorset and the Isle of Wight, field cow wheat, which is present in only a few locations in the country, and wood calamint, which we have a single dry chalk valley on the island. For insects, The island is the sole British location of the Glanville fritillary butterfly and the reddish buff moth. About a decade ago, we rediscovered the bee hawk moth in part of the island. Bat species on the island which are relatively rare in the UK include Beestein bat, grey long-eared bat and greater horseshoe bat. The island's shores and marine conservation zone support population of spiny seahorse, short-snouted seahorse, native oyster, peacock's tail and stalked jellyfish. Bob discussed the island's cultural heritage and named a number of important historical figures whose work was inspired by the natural beauty of the island, including Lord Tennyson, John Keats and J.M.W. Turner. Addressing the Minister for Natural Environment and Land Use, Trudy Harrison, MP, Bob outlined the need to protect the island's landscape, permitting homes primarily for islanders and ruling out large-scale unsustainable housing development on greenfield land. Concluding the debate, Minister Trudy Harrison MP said, "The Isle of Wight is perhaps the winner here today for the promotion of nature."
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. End-of-life Wellow unit at St Mary's Hospital not closing despite fears. A spokesman for the Isle of Wight NHS Trust has moved to clarify the ambiguous situation surrounding St Mary's Hospital's end-of-life ward. Visitors to St Mary's Hospital have noticed recent steps being taken towards the apparent closure of the end-of-life Wellow unit. One islander declared they were distressed by the development, commenting, "It is of the utmost importance that families have this private space big enough for them to gather and stay with their loved ones in their last days. The amazing staff not only give outstanding living care to the patient, but also take such good care of the families." The Isle of Wight NHS Trust has moved to reassure islanders that while the ward is being relocated for the time being, there are no plans to close it. A spokesman for the Trust said, "The care provided on Wellow Unit is among the best in the NHS, and we understand how much it means to our colleagues, patient and their loved ones. We are responding to significant long-standing pressure in the wider hospital and working to use the limited space we have available as efficiently as possible. This means that Wellow will be moved temporarily to another part of St Mary's Hospital in the coming days, while essential building works are carried out and a long-term home for this excellent service is found."
Wight Rider 2 damaged prop recovered from the bottom of the Solent, from the Island Echo, read by Jasmine. Specialist contractors have worked together to recover the propeller of the stricken Fastcat Wight Rider 2, which fell off the vessel near Ryde Pier yesterday, Tuesday. Island divers, with the assistance of the Rebel Marine, both from Cowes, have today dived to a depth of 8 to 10 metres to locate and haul up the prop. As previously reported by Island Echo, the incident occurred during one of yesterday morning's sailings from Portsmouth to Ryde and was initially described as a technical issue. A spokesperson for the Cross Solent operator later said that Wight Rider 2's propeller damage was thought to have been caused by the debris in the Solent, but no further details have been provided about what the vessel allegedly hit. Wight Rider 2 has been withdrawn for inspection and repairs. It is unknown how long this will take. In the meantime, the service is reliant on just one vessel.
Hello everyone, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo, headlined, "New Youth Centre could be heading to Sandown's former town hall." There could be soon a new Isle of Wight Youth Centre in Sandown's former town hall, alongside previously approved new houses and flats. The Isle of Wight Council is trying to bring the dilapidated Grafton Street building back to life. It has stood empty for years. Facilities for a youth hub have been proposed, including a pool table, computer station and outside area. There would also be opportunities for the space to be used for education, training, sport and community events. The town hall and former fire station, which is 150 years old, has previously played host to young people. Its last occupant was Central Eltham Youth Project, which moved out in 2017. The council says significant work needs to be done stemming from the building's age and the poor quality of refurbishments. The authority says the public benefit of restoring the hall, saving the building from further dilapidation, outweighs the harm caused to some of the rooms. A lift is proposed to be installed in the Grade 2 listed building in a part of the town hall which holds less historical significance and has been altered over the years. You can view the plans on the Council's planning register. Comments can be made until the 19th of June.
Hello, this is Francis.
And this is John.
Before we start, the second part of the Talking News here is this week's Society News. 29th of May 2023. Monday is bank holiday, so Millbrook House will be closed. There will be no swimming group.
Yoga is on Tuesday at Millbrook between 1:45 p.m. and 2:45 p.m. Refreshments will be served afterwards. Please note this is a new time.
Coffee and chat will be on Wednesday between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. here at Millbrook House. Please come along and chat with members, friends and staff.
Our usual mix and mingle is on Thursday between 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. On Tuesday, 6th of June, we have our God's Hill coffee morning at the Old Smithy from 10:30 to 12 p.m. Everyone is welcome. For any further information about the activities or events mentioned, please do not hesitate to call the office on 52205.
News items. Man who killed dog and tried to kill wife spared jail. A Binstead man who killed his own dog and attempted to murder his wife has been spared jail. Michael Lee Orton of Newnham Road appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court last Friday to be sentenced. He was accompanied by his wife of more than 30 years, who he attacked at their home address on June the 20th last year. She has supported him throughout the proceedings and is standing by him, the court heard. Orton had previously denied charges of attempted murder and causing unnecessary suffering to an animal. A jury at Salisbury Crown Court found him guilty of the offences in April. It was concluded he would not face criminal proceedings, however, due to his mental well-being. The court heard how Orton had suffered 2 strokes following the incident. The 60-year-old slit the throat of his dog, named Cora, killing her, and attempted to murder his wife. Orton's wife had suffered injuries, but they were not deemed to be life-threatening. Orton was arrested at the scene and subsequently taken to hospital for treatment for injuries sustained during the incident. Addressing Orton via video link, Judge Timothy Moosley said, "You were running your own business and it had been very successful. Not long before the events, you had taken on too much work and it affected your mental well-being. You are no longer able to work. You have no other previous convictions. It remains unclear to me what made you do it. You lost weight and you thought you had cancer, but it was, in fact, not cancer. You wrote a suicide note to your wife. This may have influenced the way you behaved, which no one could have predicted. Judge Mousley commended the 3 officers who helped save Orton's wife and tried to save the dog. He said he would also be asking the High Sheriff to recognise 2 members of the public who intervened. Those 2 people may well have saved your wife's life, Judge Mousley added. Orton was giving a supervision order which will last for 2 years.
Scale of our autism and ADHD crisis is revealed by Lucy Morgan. An information request by the county press has revealed high numbers of children awaiting a diagnosis for either autism or ADHD. However, much of the data we requested in an FOI was, quote, not held, unquote, by the IWNHS Trust. Autism diagnosis figures appear to show things have actually improved since 2019, when 637 island families were on a waiting list. However, since March 2022, when 334 children were awaiting an autism diagnosis, the list has been growing. By March 2023, it was up by around 100 to 427 families. Less information was available about ADHD diagnosis. The Trust does not hold pre-2022 ADHD waiting list records. However, it did reveal 475 children were awaiting an assessment in April 2023. That was the month families spoke of their disgust and disappointment when NHS ADHD diagnoses were indefinitely postponed. Only children referred by the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, CAMHS, the Looked After Children team or the Youth Offending team would be able to access assessments through provider SciCon, it was announced. SciCon has held the contract to provide ADHD diagnostic assessments and treatment for 6 to 18-year-olds since 2021. Together with the ICB, which oversees health services across the Isle of Wight and in Hampshire and Southampton, they said they had sympathy for families caught up in the crisis, but called it unavoidable. At the end of 2022, there were around 600 children and young people with ADHD. The Trust said, but it was unable to tell us how many ADHD diagnoses were actually completed between 2018 and 2023. The Trust says waiting times are dependent on the needs of the individual children, but the average is between about 13 and 24 months. In April, the ICB insisted it was working hard to develop a long-term solution, while parents said private appointments are available faster, but cost between hundreds and thousands of pounds. This week, one mum spoke of her frustration the issue had become, quote, yesterday's news, unquote. She said it meant, quote, a whole generation of children will be denied an appropriate and successful education. In what reality is it okay to say our process to help the most needy isn't working, so let's just stop it, she asked. The Trust said figures provided are approximate and do not cover private assessments.
Relief as future of 4 post offices is secured. The future of 4 post offices on the Isle of Wight has been secured after a financial dispute centred around the infamous Horizon IT system was resolved. Alleged financial shortfalls had put Godshill Village Shop Post Office and outreach services in Brading, Totland and Wootton at risk. As the county press reported last year, Island Community Ventures, the trading arm of charity Community Action Isle of Wight that runs the services, was asked to repay sums of over £20,000. The post office was citing discrepancies in the transactions, accounting and stock taking managed through the Horizon IT system. At the time, Island Community Ventures said it did not have the money and was happy to share financial records to prove it. It has now said a resolution has been found with Post Office Limited, and both organisations have agreed to move forward with a clean slate. Mike Bulpit, Director of Island Community Ventures and CEO of parent charity Community Action Isle of Wight, said, "This has been a worrying time, and I'm very glad that we can now work to maintain these vital community services, knowing that Post Office Limited are supportive of our efforts." Island MP Bob Seeley said, "I am glad common sense has prevailed. I was happy to support Community Action Isle of Wight in highlighting the issue they were facing, and it is in everyone's interest, not least those who rely on community post offices, that the matter has been positively resolved." In well-documented media coverage during a 15-year period, more than 700 sub-postmasters across the country were wrongly prosecuted for theft, fraud and false accounting after incorrect accounting discrepancies were thrown up by the IT system. The scandal led to many being left bankrupt and in prison with ruined reputations and years of campaigning that took a toll on them personally and professionally.
Star wins libel claim. Environmentalist Chris Packham has won his High Court libel claim over denied allegations that he misled the public into donating to the Isle of Wight's Wild Heart Trust charity. The TV naturalist sued 3 men for libel over 9 articles, which included claims he, quote, manipulated, unquote, people into donating to rescue 5 tigers, while knowing the animals were well looked after. The strongly denied allegations, repeated in several tweets and videos, related to Mr. Packham's involvement with the Wild Heart Trust, which runs the Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary in Sandown. Dominic Whiteman, editor of the online site Country Squire magazine, defended the libel claim, along with writer Nigel Bean and a third man, Paul Reed. One of the articles accused Mr. Packham and his partner of not being truthful with the public. Mr. Packham told the court he was a, quote, victim of a campaign of vile and relentless intimidation, unquote, and his views attracted criticism from people who shoot and fox hunt. In a judgment yesterday, Mr. Justice Saini ruled in Mr. Packham's favour against Mr. Whiteman and Mr. Bean, but dismissed his claim against Mr. Reed. He said, Mr. Packham did not commit any acts of fraud or dishonesty. Mr. Whiteman and Mr. Bean were ordered to pay £90,000 in damages to the TV presenter.
Landmark Hotel for sale. A landmark hotel in Sandown and its 4 acres of land has been put on the market. The freehold of the Broadway Park in Melville Street is up for sale. Boasting 104 bedrooms, a ballroom and a restaurant, it is one of the town's biggest and best-known hotels. It's estimated the Victorian mansion house first opened as a hotel in 1960. Before that, it was used as a family residence, with origins dating back to 1870. In 2020, there were fears it would shut indefinitely when its then parent company, Specialist Leisure Group, which also owned Shearing's Holidays, went into administration. However, after COVID lockdown measures were lifted, it reopened under new ownership and a hotel management agreement with Bespoke Hotels. It currently forms part of the Coast and Country Hotel Collection. The hotel previously had a swimming pool, but in recent years that has been covered by a sun terrace. Listed through Christie & Company, the freehold of the hotel and its land, including a separate detached bungalow, is up for sale for £4 million. The business property advisor said it is also selling other hotels across the UK for the same seller.
Islands Unite with Message for Gove by Oliver Dyer. The Isle of Wight played host to representatives from 9 other UK islands, as well as Secretary of State Michael Gove, over 2 days this week. The Islands Forum, the second ever to be held, was a chance for islands to discuss the challenges they face. With the main focus being on jobs and skills, Mr. Gove visited several island businesses and projects, including Wight Shipyard in East Cowes. Island MP Bob Seeley, who helped to set up the forum, said it was about finding a common agenda and, quote, using it to influence government to listen, unquote. For the Isle of Wight in particular, he said it was an opportunity to get more support for places like the Isle of Wight College. He said, "Is a potential solution for us to get government to help me persuade Southampton and Portsmouth universities to engage more with the island. Not by taking our students to Portsmouth and Southampton, but by coming here and making sure islanders can do a 3-year degree course on the Isle of Wight." The CP contacted the 9 other islands to find out what challenges they face. 4 responded. Argyll and Bute Council, which represents 23 inhabited islands, more than any other in Scotland, said its main challenges are depopulation, housing and transport. It said one of its main priorities is to make sure everyone has access to housing and maintaining the population on its islands. Also citing transport links as a challenge was Shetland Islands Council. The authority also lists the higher cost of living, demographic change, ageing population, a lack of available workforce, and supply chain and infrastructure challenges as it transitions from oil and gas to new energy. For the Highland Council, the issues discussed were minimum income standards, skills, innovation and employment, labour market issues, and associated migration challenges. While Comhel Nan Eileen Siar, a local authority based in Stornoway, Isle of Lewis, said it faces challenges including depopulation, connectivity, economic development, financial challenges, and housing and recruitment problems. Representative also attended from Rathlin, Northern Ireland, the Isle of Anglesey, Orkney Islands, North Ayrshire Council, and the Isles of Scilly.
Experts probe farm infection. Around 50 cases of Cryptosporidium have so far been linked to an Isle of Wight farm, and specialists from the UK Health Security Agency, South East, are contacting everyone who visited between early April and the start of May. An investigation has also been launched by the Health and Safety Executive. Experts are building a detailed picture of the outbreak to increase understanding of how the infection spread. In the meantime, the UK HSA has ruled out any ongoing risk associated with Hazel Grove Farm in Ryde. The UK HSA said the farm took quick action and voluntarily stopped the animal petting activity on May the 1st. Although symptoms of cryptosporidium can last for over 2 weeks in some people, we do not expect to see new cases directly attributed to the farm beyond May the 10th. Visitors had reported diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal cramps and a fever, and some children were taken to St Mary's Hospital as a precaution. Cryptosporidium parasites are naturally occurring and are commonly found in soil, water, food, or on any surface that has been contaminated with human or animal feces. Surveys have been sent to those who contracted symptoms, including diarrhea. Dr. Anand Fernandez, Health Protection Consultant for UK HSA South East, said, "We have worked closely with Isle of Wight Council, the Health and Safety Executive and the farm to take all appropriate public health steps to help prevent further infection." Cryptosporidium, which is central to this incident, is a relatively common bug which can be easily caught from touching animals. We recommend people wash their hands thoroughly with soap and hot water and dry them after being near animals or in areas frequented by animals and before preparing or eating food. This is especially important if you have been ill with symptoms yourself, as those with the infection can pass it on by touching surfaces or food. Advice for those with symptoms: drink plenty of water to prevent dehydration. If symptoms are severe, or if there is blood in the diarrhea, contact NHS 111 or your GP. Stay off school and work for 48 hours. Stay away from swimming pools for 14 days after the last episode of illness.
Ferry Fair protesters miss Minister. Protesters took to Newport High Street on Wednesday morning to raise awareness of their cause, Fairer Ferry Fairs. Wight Link Users Group, which started on Facebook, had hoped to take part in the island's forum, which Michael Gove is taking part in on the island this week. They were disappointed not to be included, so decided to protest instead to get their message heard. They gathered outside County Hall with a loud hailer and had support from Unison Branch Secretary Mark Chiverton and Labour's Richard Quigley. Bronwyn Hamilton Brown said, "We did it and we had a good time. We've made our point and recruited new members. Another demo tomorrow in Shanklin. Our message is levelling up, not sinking down. Additional help for those accessing health services on the mainland and those visiting people in hospital. Multi-link passes for families who live on the mainland who want to see their elderly parents and their families. A late fast cat service all year round. Fairer and affordable fares. This is our lifeline." She thanked all those who attended.
Supporting rock giants. An Isle of Wight band has been announced for a huge gig supporting legendary rock band Guns N' Roses at BST Hyde Park on June the 30th. Ride Base Grade 2 tweeted, "How about this then, London? We're excited. See you next month." Jack Chatfield, Jacob Hull and Sid Ryan are ex-Ride Academy pupils who all studied music. They released their eponymous third studio album in February. Today they have been announced as support at the London event. They formed in May 2013 after Sid said he bought a bass guitar from a friend for £5. The idea to start writing music together came to them during a New Year's Eve party. BST stands for British Summertime, when a series of concerts are held over 2 or 3 weekends in London's Hyde Park. When the Sweet Child of Mine and Paradise City hitmakers take to the stage, Grade 2 will be among their support acts, listed on the bill alongside the Pretenders and the Darkness. Also appearing are Grammy-nominated Larkin Poe, LA Rockers Dirty Honey, James and the Cold Gun, who are from Wales, London's The Dust Coda, Bad Nerves from Essex, and Nashville's The Foxes. You can buy tickets to enjoy the concert at bsthydepark.com/events/Guns N' Roses, 30th of June.
Train ban for e-scooters. E-scooters are to be banned on all Island Line trains and stations from June over fire fears. South Western Railway (SWR), which operates the IW train network, said it has concerns over the lithium batteries overheating. The ban will also cover e-unicycles, e-skateboards and hoverboards, but not electric wheelchairs and e-bikes. It follows a similar move from other train operators across the UK. SWR said, while the chances of a fire are small, there have been recent incidents of e-scooters catching fire on other forms of public transport. In addition to the ban, SWR has confirmed customers will not be permitted to charge e-scooters at their stations or on their trains.
Win 2 tickets to the Isle of Wight Festival. Pulp, George Ezra, the Chemical Brothers and Robbie Williams will headline the Barclaycard Presents the Isle of Wight Festival next month at Seaclose Park, and you could win tickets to be there. Blondie, Sam Ryder, Sug Babies, Niall Horan, James Bay, Sabrine Carpenter, Lovejoy and more will fill the weekend with some truly unforgettable moments from June the 15th to 18th. We have a pair of tickets to give away in this week's County Press. To be in with a chance of winning, complete the song title from Robbie Williams' album, Sing When You're Winning. The road to... Email your answer and full contact details to competition@iwcp.co.uk by midday on Thursday, June the 1st. If you're not a winner this time, don't panic. We will have another competition, this time on Facebook, from Friday, June the 2nd. Meanwhile, if you just can't take the chance, tickets are on sale at isleofwightfestival.com. See for full terms and conditions at countypress.co.uk.
Shoe shop set to close. A once popular shoe shop is to shut its second branch on the Isle of Wight. Closing down signs have appeared in the windows of Shoe Zone on Regent Street in Shanklin. The county press has been told staff at the store are being made redundant. Although no exact closure date has been confirmed, it is understood the footwear shop will shut in September. It is the second shop to announce its departure from Regent Street in recent weeks. Toymaster closed in April after nearly 7 decades. Meanwhile, Ryde's Shoe Zone closed in March 2022. Staff at the Ryde branch also lost their jobs. The county press understands the Newport branch, which will be the only existing shoe zone on the island, will not be affected.
Is bunker a bomb-proof investment? A converted Second World War bunker has gone on the market for $2.25 million. The home of architect Lincoln Miles and artist Lisa Traxler is in St Lawrence and is now for sale through Spence Willard. The couple's previous home was featured on TV programme Grand Designs and was named by presenter Kevin MacLeod as one of his favourites of all time. Lincoln went on to convert the bunker into a home, and the couple have lived there for several years. Lisa has previously opened it to the public for exhibitions of her art. Resting on an acre plot and surrounded by SSSI conservation land, the bunker looks out uninterrupted to the channel. The superb home of around 3,000 square feet incorporates the existing concrete bunker as a gallery space. In addition, 2 Nissen huts have been repurposed as studio workspaces and occasional rentals. The historical bunker served as a former Royal Air Force radar station and was ideally positioned to monitor the south coast of Britain during the Second World War as part of the Chain Homes network from 1911 until 1947. A parking area for 7 vehicles becomes a more formal brick-paved drive leading under a carport. Its canopy, a grassy mound that incorporates the building into the hillside. Beneath it is space for more vehicles, as well as access to the garage and convenient points of entry via the front door, utility and kitchen. Externally, the house is a combination of fibre cement panels, glazing and the use of rich light as brise soleil, all set against the sand-coloured concrete of the bunker and its blast wall. Rich light was chosen as the material for the fins for its resistance to the coastal elements and its angular perforations, designed by Lisa Traxler, are a nod to the dazzle pattern of camouflage attributed to the maritime artist Norman Wilkinson. Inside, a long corridor links the 2 ground floor portions with the kitchen and living space in the southwestern corner, and the bunker occupying the eastern section. Its towering concrete walls create a monolithic cave-like setting. A cast concrete staircase curves down to the double-height living space, where there is a log burner. A wall of south-facing glazing offers sea views beyond rolling fields from both levels. The corridor contains a massive storage behind plywood doors and leads to a 2-level utility room. There is also a guest WC and 3 bedrooms on the first floor.
Bonanza for island groups. 8 more island organisations have been given a boost thanks to the latest round of donations from Wight. Groups from a youth football team to a circus skills club have benefited, as Wight distributed nearly £6,000. The largest donation went to Cowes Sailability, which has received £2,500 towards chartering the specially adapted Wet Wheels handball for 18 days, allowing people with disabilities the chance to get on the water. Viva Carnival Club, an integrated group for disabled and non-disabled drummers, was granted £500 to allow it to buy extra portable instruments, allowing the group to take their weekly samba drumming out into the wider community. Solent Singers was given £370, enabling them to buy new storage cabinets and pay for the music for this year's summer concert. Meanwhile, the Isle of Wight Venue campaign, which supports vulnerable islanders and live art events, received £500 for artist postcards, framing and display art, as well as the production of events. To help with its pet food pantry, West Wight Time Bank was granted £500 to help pay for weekly sessions. The Upper Ventnor Base volunteer-led Sun Drum Forest Community Circus Club received £500 towards updating their circus equipment. Sporting Opportunities / Special Olympics Sporting Opportunities / Special Olympics, which prides itself on inclusivity, whether the athletes are school age, living in homes or supported accommodation, were granted £500 towards athletes' kit and replacing equipment. Brystone Youth Football Club were also handed £500, saying the money will allow more children from the island to enjoy football. The club will purchase new goals for its new under-11s team. Jeff Underwood, founding trustee of Wight Aid, said, "It is wonderful to help another 8 island good causes as we approach £500,000 worth of donations given by Wight Aid. We are always grateful to the individuals, organisations and businesses who put money into the pot. And if you can help us to keep on giving back, please go to our website to find out how."
Chemists open this weekend. Several pharmacies are open on the Isle of Wight this bank holiday weekend. A total of 7 are expected to be open across the island between Saturday, May the 27th and Monday, May the 29th. The sites open are as follows: Boots the Chemist, High Street, Newport, 01983 522 595, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Lloyd's Pharmacy in Sainsbury's, Foxes Road, Newport, 01983 533 198, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Boots the Chemist, High Street Ryde, 01983 562 280, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tesco Pharmacy, Brading Road, Ryde, 01633 591 005, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Jute's Pharmacy, Sandown Medical Centre, Broadway, Sandown, 01983 405 436, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Seaview Pharmacy, Pier Road, Seaview, 01983 613 116, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Yarmouth Pharmacy, Key Street, Yarmouth, 01983 760 260, 8:30 to 6 p.m. Dr. Tim Cooper, Chief Medical Officer for Primary and Local Care of the Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Integrated Care Board, said, "Please also ensure you have enough of any regular prescription medication you may need while your GP practice is closed on Monday."
Ramblers celebrate as 250th gate is installed. The Isle of Wight Ramblers have marked the installation of their 250th gate as they continue to help provide better access to the island countryside for people of all abilities. Through their Donate and Gate project, Isle of Wight Ramblers have been replacing stiles with gates since 2009. The special 250th gate, opened by High Sheriff Dawn Haig Thomas at Widcombe Manor near Knighton, was funded by Ramblers GB Path Accessibility Fund and created from oak. New trails at Western Yar, Tapnell Trail and the Warrior Trail have been created, with gates replacing stiles and ground conditions improved. The River Yar Trail has been upgraded and a link path from Brading and St Helens improved across the marshes. The Access for All campaign has involved £250,000 funding, with the gates paid by donations from individuals and community groups. Kate Ashbrook, Ramblers GB Vice President, said, "What a fantastic achievement. This is what the Ramblers is all about. Amazing, dedicated volunteers helping more people enjoy the benefits of walking in the countryside. We know stiles prevent a lot of people enjoying our beautiful landscapes, and the work of the Isle of Wight Ramblers is a big step forward in opening up the outdoors."
Woman hit police officer. A former Sandown woman who was punched to the ground by her boyfriend then did the same thing to a police officer while pleading for her partner not to be arrested, a court heard. She also laid a so-called haymaker punch on the police officer's face and was told by Isle of Wight magistrates her actions were worthy of imprisonment. Ruby Owen, of no fixed address, admitted assaulting an emergency worker, namely a police officer, by beating in Portsmouth on November the 9th, 2022. Police officers responding to a report of a vicious assault on Owen by her partner, who had punched her to the ground, found her drunk and acting irrationally at a taxi rank, said Lisa Miller, prosecuting. But Owen, who became upset with officers, pleading with them not to arrest her partner, put down her bag and delivered a haymaker-style punch to the side of a female officer's face. The blow caused her pain and headaches, as well as tenderness from nerves and tissue damage. There was even an initial concern the blow may have caused a fracture. Following her arrest, jobless Owen, 26, told police she could not remember why she attacked their colleague, who was trying to help her after she'd been assaulted. For Owen, Barry Arnett said that his client was a troubled, vulnerable woman, missing her partner after he was immediately recalled from licence back to prison. Her principal problem is alcohol, but she also has mental health issues. She has 10 convictions for 11 offences, and she's knocking on the door of going into custody, which is something I wouldn't wish upon anyone in her state, explained Mr. Arnett. She is a soul who is lost. Fortunately, she has not caused a fracture. She has shown genuine remorse and wishes to apologise to the lady, who was only trying to help her. Magistrates told Owen, formerly of Fitzroy Street, the offence was so serious it had passed the custody threshold, but handed her 6 weeks jail, suspended for 12 months. Owen was also ordered to pay the injured officer £150 compensation.
Date for pharmacy's closure. The supermarket branch of Lloyd's Pharmacy on the Isle of Wight will close next month, it has been revealed. Healthwatch IW said the closure of Lloyd's Pharmacy at Sainsbury's in Newport has been brought forward to June the 13th. It had previously been announced as July 25th. The news originally came after an announcement confirmed all of the 237 pharmacy sites within the UK supermarkets will be axed. Kevin Birch, Chief Executive Officer of Lloyd's Pharmacy, said, "This decision has not been an easy one, and we understand that our patients and customers may have questions about how the change will affect them." A Sainsbury's spokesperson said, "Lloyd's Pharmacy is withdrawing pharmacy services from our stores over the coming months. We will work with them to ensure customers are clear on how they can access an alternative pharmacy provision to meet their needs." Lloyd's Pharmacy will no longer have a presence on the Isle of Wight. Lloyd's branches in Ryde and East Cowes are in the process of being taken over. It is understood Pharmacy Jutes is going to move into the Ryde Esplanade building and the Church Path one in East Cowes. Day Lewis Pharmacy has already moved into the Lloyd's on Pyle Street, Newport.
Man blames sick dog after damaging car. A painter and decorator blamed his dog having cancer as the catalyst for abusing a delivery driver and causing serious damage to his Toyota Yaris at a car park, the court was told. Simon Daly admitted causing criminal damage to a car at the Co-op in Ryde Town Centre on the evening of December the 17th last year. Out of the blue, Daly launched a tirade of verbal abuse at delivery driver Adeline Spiria as he walked away from his vehicle towards the supermarket. Daly, 34, then inexplicably began punching and kicking Mr. Spiria's Yaris, damaging the mirrors and doors, before ripping out his stereo inside the car, said Liz Miller, prosecuting at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. Police apprehended Daly at a nearby kebab shop 25 minutes later. He caused £1,500 worth of damage to the car. In his statement read to the court, Mr. Spiria said, "It affected me a lot. I was afraid to work anymore. When I woke up, I was scared and had bad dreams." Dad of two, Daly was convicted of being drunk and disorderly in 2020 and last year. He was drunk that night and the damage caused was unprovoked, Miss Miller added. For Daly, Oscar Vincent said his client showed remorse for his actions and a willingness to pay for the damage caused. Following his last conviction for being drunk and disorderly, he had kept off alcohol for quite some time, until the end of last year, said Mr. Vincent. The circumstances leading to his offending was his poor state of mind, associated with the dog he had had for 11 years, diagnosed with cancer and had to be put down. It affected him emotionally, and he admittedly made the wrong decision to consume alcohol, which he struggles with as a coping mechanism. Through Mr. Vincent, Daly said the victim did not deserve what happened. Magistrates ordered Daly to pay compensation of £1,750 to Mr. Spiria for the damage and anxiety caused.
Museum thanks helicopter team. The Wight Aviation Museum hosted a special presentation lunch for all those involved in the donation and preservation of its latest and largest display, a Skeeter helicopter. Held at the Sandown Airport site, special guests were John Phillips and Adrian Brimson, who previously owned the craft before donating it to the museum. The Skeeter helicopter XL-765 was used by the British Army as a two-person aerial reconnaissance aircraft and was designed and built at Saunders Row in Cowes back in the 1950s. The Wight aviation team, led by Jonathan Lamb and Paul Carey, had been hard at work over the winter period to get the helicopter ready for display. They were assisted by a number of volunteers, and special mention must go to Nigel Johnson, who arranged transport, which involved Steve Porter Transport and Red Funnel. Pete Allen built a bespoke display frame with steel donated by the Forge. John Fitness and Jeff White of the Isle of Wight Bus Museum helped mount the craft, and Terry Ryan of White Eagle was responsible for the lettering.
Workhouse was no charity. The Isle of Wight had a workhouse for many years. It opened in 1774 in the grounds of what is now St Mary's Hospital and closed in 1948. Feeding and homing the poor and unemployed wasn't an act of charity. They were seen as potentially troublesome, and the workhouse allowed the authorities to keep them under virtual lock and key, all under one roof. People admitted by reason of criminality or loose morals had no meat on meat days and wore distinctive clothing or other disgraceful badges. The ethic of work for work's sake, with no regard for humanity, could be seen in all its glory. It was a grim, soulless existence. In 1891, this letter appeared in the county press. Sir, in many cases, no more is heard of inmates of the workhouse after they enter there. I inquired of an inmate I knew, and the answer received was that the old man had been dead more than a year. There had been no record of his death, and unknown to his old friends, he had died and been buried in an unmarked grave in the workhouse cemetery. Cannot the master present a written statement of the deaths which occur in the house, giving the names, ages and places to which the deceased persons belonged? Your obedient servant, Clericus. The Board of Guardians did actually take notice of that letter, and deaths in the workhouse were published thereafter. The following moving letter appeared in January 1908. Sir, I have noticed with sorrow the letters in your paper about the workhouse. I should like to say a few words on the other side. It may seem astonishing, but I want to say that the happiest 3 years in my life were spent as an inmate of the workhouse. I went there out of health, but left it with a good, sound constitution. It is true that the butter was not the best fresh, but when I remembered that when living at home I often had dry bread or bread and dripping, I ate it and was thankful. The meat was not always of the best quality, but before going there many a day I had none. The regular living and plain diet built me up, and I am now a strong woman. I never met with anything but kindness from the guardians, nor anyone else. In fairness to those who work so hard for the good of the poor, I ask you to insert this letter. Yours obediently, Fair Play. On March the 28th, 1931, the county press quoted from an official report on the workhouse. The area of the property is about 77 acres, and about half is let to farmers. About 13 acres grow all the vegetables used in the workhouse, and there is a cemetery now full of about 4 acres. The water supply is from the main, supplemented by a well which yields 7,200 gallons a day. In the men's quarters, there were 132 beds, with 85 occupied. In the women's quarters are 110 beds, 69 occupied. The dormitories are lit by gas and warmed by radiators. The nursery provides very good accommodation for the 6 infants in the house. The food, including all the bread, is cooked for all the inmates in the main kitchen. On a personal note, in 1992, I recorded my uncle Les Arnold, born in Green Street, Newport in 1917, talking about our family history, and the subject of the workhouse came up. He told me people who didn't have anything were rounded up and they went to the workhouse. They had no option. They'd come into Newport. They didn't have any money, and I used to look at them and think, poor souls. We were never flush at home, but they had nothing. When I was about 15, there was a lad who hounded me for a couple of weeks. I felt sorry for him, and I made the mistake of getting a bit too friendly. He asked if we had a gramophone at home. Well, we did, and he had some records at the workhouse and wanted to know if he could bring them to the house and play them, and I had to tell him no. I had to put him off. I felt ever so sorry for him, but there was no way I would be allowed to take him home. In 1948, the NHS arrived, and the workhouse, by now renamed Forest House, was closed. The county press reporting, "The poor law is finally abolished, and on Monday the 440-bed institution will form the largest unit of the island's free hospital accommodation under the new National Health Service." Hooray for that.
Mystery of the Well revealed by David Wight. In various guidebooks published that mention the town and surroundings of Ventnor, references would regularly be made to the Well of St Boniface, situated high on the wooded hills overlooking the town. St Boniface had spent some time preaching Christianity in the Bonchurch area in 710 AD. Many holy wells, in order to protect them, were patronized by a saint, and this one was no different. The well eventually became known as the St Boniface Wishing Well. Through the ages it was immersed in local folklore and well worship, involving well dressing on St Boniface Day. It was also being said that if the well was reached without looking back and the water from it drank, then a wish granted would come true. Legend also has it that during the 18th and 19th century, seamen rounding the coast of Ventnor would dip the fore topmast in reverence to the well. Another legend stated that if you could climb the steep slope to the well without looking back, the first person of the opposite sex you met thereafter would be your chosen love. I think that one could open up a host of problems. Yet another story goes that in the 1840s, an elderly man, something of an entrepreneur, dug the well out, hoping to put the water to a commercial use. However, the well immediately dried up, but following the eventual death of the man, the water flowed again. The unusual aspect of the position of this well on a steep downland slope also provided a factor regarding its importance. It was while leading a walking group on the Bonchurch Hills that I became interested in where the well was exactly, and upon further investigation found that although often mentioned in publications, nobody actually knew its exact position. It had become lost in time. All types of official maps also had it wrongly placed. In 2009, forming a team of a historian, a water diviner, and myself, the three of us started our search. The problem was that over many years, possibly 120, the site had become more difficult to find. So using old photos, and stretching my plotting and navigation skills to the limit, we spent many weeks climbing and studying the downland area. Eventually, we thought we had discovered the site, but had one more test for backup verification. During the early 1960s, a report that 2 local men believed they had located the well and dug it out had been found by us, and by luck we traced one of those men mentioned. We persuaded him to accompany us to verify what we had found, and hey presto, it was confirmed that we had relocated the missing well, although there now are very little signs of water, or indeed clear signs of the well itself. Following discussions with a very helpful Tony Tutton, the then head of the Isle of Wight National Trust in 2010, the National Trust placed a historic stone marker on a footpath directly above the site of the well. The historic well, hopefully, would never be lost again, and maybe on St. Boniface Day, somebody from the local community may reintroduce the well-dressing custom of old.
Now for some letters. From Hans Bromwich in Cowes. Could there be a better example of the folly in putting essential public services in the hands of for-profit companies than what's happening with our water utility companies? The idea we are now going down the same route with our NHS I find staggering. Who in their right mind truly believes that putting health provision in the hands of private companies with their designs on making profits and dividends for often overseas shareholders will lead to better health cover?
Money Matters from J. Gibbons of Ryde. The Governor of the Bank of England is wringing his hands and asking trade unions to moderate wage claims and merchants to reduce price rises. The bank has been creating astronomical quantities of new money over 15 years, distributing it through the banks at the same time as it has kept interest rates artificially low. This has had the effect of the surge in house prices, and thousands of young people have taken out mortgages which they will no longer be able to afford. They call this quantitative easing. The polite name is debauching the currency, for which bad kings have been reviled over the centuries. Blame the gnomes of Threadneedle Street.
Don't fall for the latest scam from Mike Redman in Cowes. The Amazon Prime call scam appears to have migrated to the Isle of Wight. Twice in the last 24 hours, I have had calls from different 01983 telephone numbers purporting to be about the renewal of my non-existent Amazon Prime subscription. These calls are scams and should be ignored, even when coming from what appears to be a local number. Don't fall for it.
We needed a coffee to recover from Claire Allen of Brystone. At the beginning of the year, I booked a week's holiday to the New Forest for my husband and myself at the end of June. I had to change this booking due to eye surgery being imminent during June, so I changed the booking to a week in the middle of August instead. We decided to visit the Wight Link ferry office in Yarmouth to make the booking, as we thought, wrongly as it turned out, that some sort of discount might be available for island dwellers, and the fact that we are pensioners. The cost for a return journey, a staggering £292. We had to visit a local cafe for a sit-down and a coffee to recover. This really is an enormous amount of money for two 45-minute ferry journeys. The red funnel crossings from Cowes to Southampton were marginally cheaper by £28, so hardly worth the bother of a longer car journey to the New Forest. Incidentally, in the Daily Mail today, May the 20th, Condor Ferries are offering foot passenger trips to Guernsey for £19 return, which is a 3-hour journey.
It's now goodbye from Francis.
And it's goodbye from John.
The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. It's a couple of months ago now since we raised the question on the programme, is life becoming easier or harder if you're visually impaired? Well, it was clear from the strength and number of your responses that we'd struck a chord, and indeed we've broadcast quite a lot of those responses since, but you also made it clear how much we'd had to leave out. So we've decided to return to the subject and try to pick up some of the points you say we missed. Inevitably, we spent quite a lot of time debating the effects of technological advance and the fact that since then the whole world is seeming to be debating the pros and cons of artificial intelligence suggests that we got the zeitgeist right. Everyone seems to be puzzling about whether more technology will be able to give us much more information more quickly, or will it make it less and less easy to get help from a real human being? And for blind and partially sighted people, it's often the real human being you need in trying to navigate your day-to-day life. Well, we did touch on it in that last programme, but time meant we had to leave it out. So we're returning to it today. One of our guests then, Roshni Hafiz, set out the problem as she saw it very neatly.
During the pandemic, we largely became invisible because the country was working from home, because we weren't able to social distance in the same way. So we have been, to quote a popular turn of phrase, out of sight, out of mind. Thinking back also to the technology issues that you've just been speaking about, there is a kind of nuanced argument there too, because technology is still intrinsically linked, for our community anyway, to employment, education or training. And if you're not in any of those, you potentially don't have the technology, and that then bars you from integrating with society and adds to that air of invisibility, I think. I have a branch in my local supermarket next to where I work. I often go in there to buy lunch, and I get a kind of weird reaction when I ask for assistance. In fact, somebody once said to me, "Why didn't you send someone else to pick up the food for you?" Well, why would I do that? Why should I do that? But there is this air of we're not seen, and therefore the awareness has declined.
The trouble is it's a vicious circle, isn't it? If they don't get used to seeing us, we're put off going out and they'll see even less of us. Mike, I know you were very mobile in your working days. What's your attitude to this?
It's very hard to say overall. It's hard to measure attitudes. I still get some blisteringly stupid things said to me. Sort of things like people will help me and say, well, there's my good deed for the day. I don't end up feeling very hopeful about it.
That was former university lecturer Mike Lambert there, and before that Roshni Hafiz, a VAT specialist with HMRC. Well, we've asked Roshni to return, and she's joined today by two new guests, Gavin Griffiths, who's a freelance access consultant, and Richard Lane, who in his time has worked for just about every major organisation dealing with visual impairment, although he's taking a rest from that and is teaching wine appreciation at London's Wine and Spirit Education Trust. Let's get your reactions first to Roshni's points. Gavin, did we become invisible over COVID, do you think?
Definitely. And certainly, let's head back to 2012 when the whole country was on its highest plane, probably. At the time, working for RNIB in their leisure services, we dealt all the way through from start to finish with the Olympics and the surrounding Paralympics to make it fully accessible for blind and partially sighted people. And at the time, the public were all over that as well, you know, stopping, letting people get in lifts first. Whole queues would move aside. But within 12 months of that, we were back to the usual kind of thing, elbow in the chest if you try to get past someone. What are you doing getting to the front of this queue? Who do you think you are? So quite quickly, the public reverted to their I've got to get there first and you're second, whoever you are, kind of attitude.
OK, so peaks and troughs. Let me bring in Richard. Allowing for Mike Lambert's point that helpfulness is very hard to measure, what's your take on all this and what you've heard so far?
Well, I would just stress the how do you measure it point. And the real answer is, how can we possibly know? I don't think we can.
What's your own experience then? If you're going to ruin my programme by saying we can't get a decent answer, let me throw it at you that way. What's happened to you?
Well, I think, to be honest, Peter, I'd say over the past 32 years since I became blind in my mid-20s, I've, like many people, there have been some good moments in terms of getting assistance and help, some real highlights, and some less good moments. And to be honest, to me, it's not a case of are things better or are they worse, but how do you deal with it and what are the strategies for dealing with it? Certainly when it came to technology and hearing about sort of, touch screens and they're totally inaccessible, they're totally useless. What a nightmare.
Came across one yesterday. I was outraged.
Yes, well, agreed. But the way I deal with that is, do you know what? I can't use that at all. It's not even a case of me being able to use it a bit and not very well. I just can't use it. So it's now not part of my life. I don't even think about it. So and if I can't buy a train ticket, I'll just get on the train. And if someone comes around to me on the train, I'll pay for a ticket then. End of story. I don't worry about it.
Well, I want to bring Roshni back. Perhaps we ought to make the distinction anyway clear here that, there are two levels or types of help. There's formal help, the help perhaps that we think we ought to be able to rely on from people in the service industry, shops, which you've mentioned, public services. But then there's what you might call more casual help, the help we all need from time to time, just from passing strangers. Did your views apply to both?
Yes. What COVID did was two things. First of all, it very obviously added to that invisibility. But when we then started re-emerging into this new normal, as people refer to it, it kind of gave companies an air of legitimacy to say, we can't provide XYZ support because we're still in COVID special measures and we're being expected to do much more with much less in terms of resourcing. And I completely agree with what Richard's saying about we have to develop strategies and resilience. So we absolutely do. And I think that's integrated into the core fabric of how most of us function day to day and operate. But I think the issue is perhaps the collective impact of that over a period of time, particularly on somebody who's newly lost their sight.
Just before I throw that to the others, I think, am I right, you've been trying to learn to swim recently, where that's been a factor?
Yeah, I would like to, but I'm constantly being told no by swim schools. No, and sometimes they have genuine reasons for saying no because they don't have the staff or they don't have the time slots available in the pool that fit with my work schedule. But other times it's just like, no, just no because of COVID and stuff. And that's what I mean about it. I think it becoming easier for them to be able to do that in the current climate.
The issue there, I suppose, is this still happening? You say people said it, at the end of lockdown or one of the many lockdowns that we had. Are they still doing it? I mean, Gavin, I think you have a particular issue with what's happening in the NHS, for example.
Very much so, yeah. I mean, the NHS for a long time now have had a policy in place whereby any patient who's disabled is supposed to be able to get all of their documentation, if asked for, in a format that they require. That, in practice, however, is virtually impossible unless you are stubborn and keep on at them. Being blind almost all of my life, bar a year and a half. I've learned to deal with that kind of situation and fight and bring down those barriers. But someone who's lost their sight in later years may not have the confidence because the infrastructure that we had as children to bring us through education and show us how to deal with the sighted world is very much not there anymore.
And going back, if you like, to casual help, I thought Mike Lambert made an interesting point there about help from passing strangers. People saying, well, I've done my good turn for the day. What he seemed to be saying, do we have to live in a permanent state of gratitude to people who help us? or could it be regarded as something that you should be able to expect in a civilised country? What's your attitude to that? How much is it about strategies, as Richard is saying, how much you are good at coping with it?
I'm very much of a battler. If somebody says I can't do something, I often want to go out and will go out and prove that it's completely the other way around. And in that kind of sense, I will carry on looking for help, even if someone, as often happens, refuses me in the street. But I mean, of course, I'm grateful to the people who have helped me. There's many, lovely people who've stopped and helped eventually. But overall, I think we should expect it as a basic human being. I expect to be treated like anybody else. But at the point where somebody refused me help and somebody stops them, for example, and they've said, "Why didn't you help that guy?" And they said, "I didn't know what to say." Well, sorry, but if you've got past education of any kind, you've got past the age of certainly 21, and you don't know how to say to someone, "Sorry, I can't help," or "Yes, the post office is just over here," then there's something sadly wrong with today's community.
Well, I was going to say, is the thing that's wrong that people are being told that there's a right way and a wrong way to do this kind of thing? Because organisations that say this is the way you do it are being totally misleading, because it depends. Each individual has preferences. Some people like to be touched, some people don't want to be touched. Richard, you've worked for all these organisations.
Yeah,
Would
long
you not
time ago now.
Yeah,
But that you're right. That clearly no hard and fast rules, and it has to be down to the individual. I think once we start going down the road of everything being prescriptive, then that really worries me. I mean, I realise this puts the onus on the individual, and some individuals will therefore find it harder. A lot of it is to do with communication. It's just your ability to be personable. Of course, you just say thank you. That's great. That's just common courtesy. I mean, I've had help from little old ladies who are sighted, but who can't carry their suitcases. So I carry their suitcases while they guide me. You know what I mean? It's totally fine. That the say, well, we're a good team, weren't we? Bye, nice to meet you.
Haven't you more or less been picked up on occasions?
Well, I couldn't comment about that, Peter.
I don't mean picked up in that sense.
Oh,
I mean,
sorry.
physically picked up.
Sorry, Peter. I thought that was you were referring to something else.
No.
Silly me. Yeah, wonderful early occasion, early on in my blind life, when I was waiting for a friend just quietly with my white cane, pre-guide dog era, and the next thing I knew, I was sort of being carried like a carpet across the road. And I was just planted down on the other side of the road, and this giant just walked off. He had obviously thought he had done his good deed for the day. Of course, things go really wrong, and I've called out for help, sometimes haven't got it. Of course, all these difficult things can happen. But my overwhelming, 30-odd years perception is, if you can communicate effectively with people, goodness me, the public out there are generally, I'd say, pretty good, pretty helpful.
Let me put another point to all of you. I wonder how much this is a British facet. I mean, Roshni, you've lived in a number of places. Do you think there is an element, this is partly something about our perhaps reluctance to be too forward in this country?
I think there is a bit of that. I mean, obviously being in Scotland, I'm naturally hugely biased, and I think we are the most friendly country in the world, and people are always stopping me in the city centre and offering help. And I second what Gavin and Richard has said, absolutely grateful for that. But I do think that we live in a society now that's plagued by cancel culture on social media and stuff, and I think that has made it much harder for people to feel comfortable approaching. Recently, I've had a few near misses walking across the road with cars coming right up next to, which is pretty scary for us when you have no sight. But I've also had people shout out of car windows at me that, "Can't you look where you're going?" And it's like, well, clearly not, which is why the cane's there. But again, I would say I really don't believe that that's people being nasty or difficult. I think it does come down to just not understanding what the cane's for, and it's emphasised by the fact that we've been invisible or hidden for so long.
Always good to have the dog's view as well.
One second.
Clearly strongly agreeing with me.
1 second, I've just got to answer a door, sorry.
No number on it.
On what?
Lewis.
Let's just wait for Gavin to get his delivery.
Yes.
Cheers, mate. Always the way.
Was that a helpful man delivering you in a visually impaired friendly fashion?
That was actually a very helpful parcel man. Happy to hand the parcel to me and talk to me direct, rather than leaving it on the doorstep, running as far away as they possibly can.
Well, there you are. We've had some
which is the norm.
Live action in the programme. I think you've just come back from holiday. So where were you and what were the differences?
Yeah, we've just returned from Tenerife, and I've experienced there what I've experienced in Turkey, in Portugal, in Spain, and in America when I went to Florida, which was I find these countries much more open to approaching you personally. For example, we went on a boat trip this holiday where we just booked on at the little hole in the wall down in the harbour in Los Gigantes, Tenerife. Paid our money. There was no questions about two of us having sticks. And when we got to the boat, it wasn't a really difficult climb down, but it had no handrails and stuff. It was just some wideish steps, a couple of guys at the top who, when they saw myself and my wife, gently took our wrists, and before we knew it, we were on the boat without a single problem, where come here, that would have been the case of, nope, you can't go on. You know, I've had that where people say the stick and they say, have you got someone with you? Well, clearly not, or else I wouldn't be here with my stick. And they go, well, sorry, you can't go.
And yet, Richard, I think you've got a slightly different take on what happens in other countries.
Yeah, I mean, not on exactly on Gavin's point. I've based in the UK, but I lived in France for a year, and I've been to the States a lot with work. I'm always come home to the UK and I'm just completely, constantly blown away by how good the staff training is in the transport networks and the system here in terms of knowing how to treat you, greet you, call ahead with using the technology, the meet and greet system. OK, I'm just in London in the southeast at the moment, but I never even worry about using the transport system because I know the training and support of the staff is so good. When I went to New York and I asked for some assistance for the guy behind a glass booth, he kind of went, what? He just couldn't believe I was even asking the question to get some help. Of course not. We haven't got any staff.
Right.
I find that really strange, though, because in the last couple of years, certainly at the end of lockdown and sort of a little bit before we came out of lockdown, I was helping at the time East Midlands Trains, I think it was, as they were called then, to put together their side of the new passenger assistance app. And that, for a while, worked superbly. I don't know whether you found this all over the country, but certainly here around Nottingham, Derbyshire, what the train companies are now doing is handing off their assistance to a third party. And some of the training, well, it's virtually non-existent. These guys don't know where to take you. They don't know how to talk to you. Even though you're polite and sensible, some of the third-party companies that are out there are absolutely appalling. I'd prefer to actually rock up and actually just ask for help at the gate. You get better assistance that way than you do through this specific app that was set up specifically for this job.
I think we just had another illustration of just how subjective this is.
And patchy provision is.
I'm going to put in a word for London Underground. I mean, I don't live in London I've never lived in London, but London Underground assistant is second to none. People are always talking about how, you go to London as a blind person. And frankly, I found nowhere better, not just for that kind of organised help, but also casual help is so good in London. And one of the reasons it's good is because they're in a hurry. They haven't got time to stand and watch you as you walk away from them and then come back and say, are you sure you're all right? That doesn't happen in London. Roshni, you raised the question of invisibility. What have you taken from this discussion?
I would agree with everybody, really, that it's a massively nuanced subject, but I think we've all agreed with the irregular nature of what's available around the country and indeed around the world. And I guess from that point of view, it comes back to a point that Richard made earlier around, well, when you can't control the externals fully, what is it that you can do? And I think there are bigger pieces of work for us to do around how we organise as a collective. There's a whole other discussion which we will not have to do around whether visually impaired organisations are fulfilling that in the way that we used to. But I think there is more work to be done there, because most of us have grown up with the medical model of disability and so on, and how that impacts on how we're seen today. But then also, what can we do as individuals around building up our own resilience and our response to things? And I guess it's kind of a two-pronged attack around how you tackle the invisibility and make it better.
We're going to leave it there. I hope and expect that this is only the beginning of the debate. And as always, we want to hear what you think. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. You can leave voicemails on 0161 836 1338. You can go to our website, if you're able, bbc.co.uk/in touch, from where you can also download tonight's and previous editions of the programme. Many thanks to Gavin Griffiths, Richard Lane and Roshni Hafiz. From them, from me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings and studio manager Jonathan Esp, goodbye.
Scaffolding and Skip News, week commencing the 29th of May 2023. Newport area. 4 Carisbrook Road, Salvation Army, 72 Pyle Street, 11 St James Street, Lugley Street, Cafe Isola, Chapel Street, Halifax, 116 High Street, 87 Trafalgar Road, O2 Shop, 13A High Street, 18 to 19 Key Street, 62 Castlehold Street.
Skips Newport area, Waterstones High Street. Ryde area, 7A Esplanade, Gibson Gurnall 34 Union Street, 31 Green Street, Hills Court Newport Street. Skips Ryde area, 9 Daniel Street. Freshwater area, 101 School Green Road.
Yarmouth area, the Rectory, St James Street, Dolphin Cottage, St James Square, Cowes area, 6 Terminus Road, 71 York Street, Regency House, High Street, 15 York Street, 11A Bath Road, Tari Willis, 20 Birmingham Road, Shanklin area, 63 Regent Street.
Vectis Radio, FM 104.6, the heart of the island's community.
And our guest?
Our guest, Ruth Hollingshead.
Very good. We forgot someone. Mocha. Ruth's dog, yes. Assistant dog. So it's brilliant. She is absolutely gorgeous. She's only about 2-year-old, so we'll talk about that a little bit longer, a little bit later, I should say. Right, now we have a guest in. Now, Ruth, you're going to tell us about your old guide dog, I believe.
I can tell you about my old guide dog, yes.
Just sit a bit forward a bit more, please.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I mean, I was matched with my first guide dog in 2017. Her name was Flora, and she's a golden retriever lab cross. She was, say, my first guide dog. I made the decision to apply because my children were getting that bit older, and I could sort of see them going off to university and me becoming more and more isolated, I suppose, and going out less and less. So yes, I had Flora, and things were amazing. I didn't really realise what I'd been missing out on until I got my guide dog and suddenly could go out and do all the things I wanted to do independently. So, going to cafes, getting the bus, all these sorts of things, which is quite doable with a long cane. But it is for me, it's much more sort of tiring, I suppose, using a long cane. You have to be much more aware. You spend your time in sort of hypervigilant mode because you're worrying about not only where you are and where you're going, but navigating people. That's one of the most difficult things to do as a blind person. Non-static objects, people suddenly deciding to turn around in the middle of the pavement, or people who are looking at their phone screens and not looking where they're going, or pushchairs, prams, all the things, So when you have got a long cane, it is much more difficult to navigate moving targets, if you like, and that's where the guide dogs come in, because they will weave in and out. So suddenly walking down the high street, you sort of, as I say, weave in and out of people, straight down. It's absolutely amazing. And Flora and I worked really well together for 3 years. And then I noticed that she was starting to slow down a little bit and not working quite as quickly. Her speed was dropping a little. And after a really long free run, I noticed that she was limping, and it was a vet visit. And I was really surprised that she was diagnosed with arthritis and hip dysplasia. And I rang guide dogs, and they said, that's it, hang your harness up. She will be medically retired. Although she is now on monthly painkilling injections and she's absolutely pain-free and absolutely fine, it's not ethical to work a dog. So I'm being pulled across the studio on a wheelie chair by my new dog now. It's not ethical to work a dog, I don't think, who is potentially, in discomfort. So the decision for me to retire was easy on those grounds, but very hard for me. You have to do what's right for the dog. And I was very, very fortunate because I've got 2 grown-up children at home and family close by. I was able to keep Flora. So she has become a well-loved family pet. Oh, how fabulous. Yes, it's lovely. But it did mean that I had to to go back to, as I've said before, to Michael Caine, my horrible long cane, and rely on him for nearly 18 months. So
that must have been very difficult to do.
It is very difficult. When you first get your first guide dog, you suddenly realise that the whole world wants to talk to you. And it's really overwhelming to start with. Everybody will come up and speak to you, which is lovely, and you really get used to it. The moment you have your long cane, I call it my invisibility cane, because nobody will speak to you when you've got a long cane. I don't know what it is, whether people just don't quite know how to approach you, or whether they're just nervous about it. But if I go out with my long cane, nobody will speak to me with it.
It's a shame.
It is really it is really surprising. So you had to get used to that. Suddenly, feeling quite isolated. And I say it was quite a long process to get back onto the waiting list. Flora retired in 2021, so we were just coming out of COVID. And so, yes, I was sort of stuck. It was 10 months to get back onto the list, the waiting list. And I was incredibly fortunate that I was matched very quickly. So I got a phone call in September, and it was literally, "We think we found a match for you." I was like, "Right." And they said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, nothing. Can we do a matching visit?" I was like, "Yes." So they literally brought Mocha over, and she spent the night with me without Flora there. Flora went to my mum's house, and it all went very well. And then I had a phone call Friday afternoon saying, "Can you start training on Monday?" Wow. So it can be that quick. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose that when you've got a cane, you haven't got an attraction there, whereas a dog will attract people because they're there, aren't they? And you think, "Oh, that's a guide dog, lovely." I know they're working dogs as well, but they do attract people, and they are gorgeous animals. They are. They're so well behaved as well. Better than children, I think. I suppose she has her days as well. But
she does. Yeah.
And I suppose that when you have a guide dog, you feel completely in the dog's charge, don't you? And you just let the dog move you wherever you go, and you feel absolutely safe, don't you?
You do. I mean, there's a huge element of trust there.
Absolutely,
it was much easier this time round with Mocha, just to let yourself go, and and I have to say, her work is excellent. Don't tell Flora that she's slightly better than her.
Oh dear. Let's hope she's not listening.
She won't be listening. But I think a lot of it is guide dogs have changed the way they do their training now. They've gone completely over to a positive reinforcement way of doing training, and it's all rewards based. And it works really well, particularly with the Labradors, who are, quite greedy dogs, to be fair. So they will do anything for a biscuit, for a piece of kibble. And I mean, what you do is you weigh their food allowance out in the morning, and they have a couple of handfuls for their breakfast, and the rest of it goes into a treat pouch, which I'm wearing now. And as they work during the day, they sort of get their wages, if you like. Yeah. And because you're continuously reinforcing their good behaviour, the curb work I've got out of her is absolutely excellent. She's a really, really good worker, and very quickly I realised that within the first sort of 2 or 3 days, I thought, I've got a good dog here. I will say that her behaviour in the house is not quite as good as Flora's. But a lot of that, I think, is because I've gone back to having a young dog. I've got used to a sort of mellow 8-year-old dog, and suddenly I've got a bombshell running around the house, hiding slippers and taking bras in the garden and sort of being a pest, really.
Just like normal dogs.
So how is Flora different from Mocha?
Flora is so placid. She's a very placid, very laid back, very gentle dog. Again, so if I give Flora a sort of treat, she'll sort of suck it off your fingers. And I got a nasty surprise the first time I held one out for Mocha, because I was almost up to my elbow in her mouth before I managed to pull my hand back. And they are very different like that. It's lovely watching them play sort of together, playing tug of war and things like that, because Flora does let Mocha win a lot of the time, and Mocha will lay with her legs spread out like a starfish and let Flora pull her around the kitchen floor, sort of thing. And they play really nicely together, because obviously, again, that is a big issue when you're being matched with your dog. If you have a pet dog or anything, even small children or other pets within the house, is the new dog going to work out with the sort of family setup as it is? There's a lot that goes into this sort of the matrix of the matching process, which is why it can take so long, and why people who have more complex needs can wait even longer.
Indeed. So would you say that having Mocha as a pup, well, I know she's not a pup, but she's a young dog, is a lot different to the way that Flora was trained? In terms of how you deal with her?
In a way, yes. I mean, I was very lucky in that the guide dog mobility instructor that I had with Flora was very much, he almost used the positive reinforcement methods anyway. That's what he had sort of 40 years experience of working with dogs, and he was very much, it's all about the praise, don't ever overcorrect your dog, and that's what's been sort of completely sort of almost got rid of within the guide dog training now, is that whole ignore the bad behaviour, praise the positive behaviour, which seems to really work, particularly with Mocha. And so there was none of the sort of, telling them off or anything like that, which, to be fair, I didn't do with Flora because I wasn't told to, but that was the old methods. There was a lot more correction. And there was a lot more coaxing with Flora. She was quite a nervous dog when I first got her. She was quite anxious. It took us 12 weeks to do my training, and she was, there was a few times when we didn't actually think she would make the grade. She was quite an anxious dog, whereas Mocha's bulletproof, and she's fearless, and she's literally, off she goes. So yes, just Flora was my first dog, so I'd never had anything to compare it to, and I just thought, so the difference between the two is remarkable.
No, Andy, you've got a couple of questions, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Danny has as well.
Oh, sorry. Danny.
Well, Andy's left the studio. Danny's here instead.
Danny's come back.
I don't know when Andy's going to come back. We'll tell him he's going to be on in a minute. Just to listen to you tell us about your dog during the break. There's a couple of things that sort of jumped out of it. I love fitness, nutrition, and I'm a process-orientated individual. I love systems and that sort of thing. What I didn't understand is the fact that, or realise, is that your first dog, you had to be kind of trained how to use the dog, not just the dog to help you. And I think obviously you've got this second dog now, so you understand how it functions, as a help to you. Just talk us through what you had to kind of learn first.
Well, I mean, to start with, there's verbal commands. So there is left, right, there is forward, straight on, and find. She will find a bin, find a chair, find a door. Yeah. There's also visual actions that will go with that. It's almost like when you do the forward command, it's almost like you're bowling, so you'll bowl a ball, and then just you're pointing left and right, or you can tap your thigh for turning right. So obviously you have to learn all these sort of commands. And also you have the guide dog mobility instructor will do your routes with you, because where I, for example, used to cross the road wasn't suitable for where the dog needs to cross the road. So although you know your routes, it's just fine-tuning them, and it's just tweaking those little bits that you need to... So it fits
the dog's sort of capabilities.
Absolutely. And also when you first get your dog, they are trained to stop at both curbs. So they'll stop at the down curb, so when you start to cross the road, but they're also trained to stop at the up curb on the other side. And that's something you can continue. You can also, that when they first come, they will sit, but you can sort of get rid of that if that's what you want. So for example, Mocha will stop at the curb when we start to cross the road, but she won't stop on the other side, because that's not what I want. I want to continue walking.
Okay.
So there's those little bits you need to fine tune.
And the other thing that just kind of made me smile is the fact that the dog gets weighed on a regular basis to make sure you're not giving them too much treats outside what's the sort of the guidelines for reward.
They do have a working weight. I mean, when you get them, they come on with their little logbook, and that is their working weight, and you are expected to keep them within that working weight. And it's purely for their own health. Their own health,
just like
I mean, Labradors, as we all know, are prone to that you can see some more rotund Labradors about, and they will eat because they're perpetually hungry. They never feel full, Labradors, so they will eat and eat. So her food every morning is weighed out for her, and that's her food allowance for the day. And a lot of that is sort of rewards for when we are training, when we're working.
Yeah, because that's basically what I do with my fitness regime. Is I weigh myself on a regular basis. I look after my nutrition, and I know my calories and all those sort of things. So it's kind of me and Mocha kind of probably go through the same process. She's probably not so happy with it though, because it's enforced on her.
And it's a similar thing. I mean, you shouldn't ever sort of either extend or contract the girth on her harness.
Right.
And so probably similarly with your belt.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. The belt loop. Is a good gauge of where we are. Yeah. That's really interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. I got your name right. I'm doing well now. It's only once.
Well, I'm going to go and get Andy in a minute. He's going to come back in a minute.
You're not getting any treats anyway, so don't look at her drink. That's for the dog only.
That's fine with me.
Well, thank you for that. So, anything else? There's one question. How do you get on with cooking in the kitchen?
We had a brief discussion about this, didn't we, during the break? I mean, I learnt to cook as a visually impaired person, so it's something that I've always done, say, not being able to see. So I do have a tiny bit of residual sight. I've got about 5% functional vision. So my kitchen actually looks almost like an autopsy suite. It's bright white. You'll get a tan from the lights in there. It's absolutely sort of sparklingly white, but all my utensils are orange, and there's a lot of contrast in my kitchen, so for the things that I can put down I can pick up again. I use something called bump-ons on my cooker, so they're little plastic stick-on dots that you can get to mark temperatures, and it's just ways that I've learned. I use my air fryer a lot. I use my slow cooker a lot. So there's different ways of doing things, and as I say, I'm the trustee at Sight for Wight, and I do the Living Well with Sight Loss courses, and it's much more difficult working with people who are at the beginning of their sight loss journey, having to relearn these skills. But there is help and support out there, but it's just sort of finding it and using it.
Any more, Kitty?
I was just going to say it's fabulous that you've come to see us today to have a chat about the difference between Mocha and how it was walking with Michael
Caine. Yes,
Michael Caine. Once you were dog free for a short while. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us, Ruth.
No, it's my pleasure, and I say hopefully just alleviates a bit of that sort of mystery around sort of blind people, that we're this sort of, I don't know. Yes, this sort of strange race of people that can't be approached. We're just normal, boring people who can't see. That's all we are, really.
Well, thank you so much.
I don't think the boring part, unless once they got to know you, they wouldn't be bored, that's for sure.
I'm sitting here in a pair of crocheted trousers, so not necessarily boring, no.
No, it certainly is not. But, well, thank you very much for coming in, Ruth. It's been an absolute pleasure for you to come in and see us.
Your support matters.